Right now, you are touching something, a phone, a glass, the arm of a chair, and without thinking about it, you just left a piece of yourself behind, an invisible copy pressed into the surface in a thin film of oil and sweat. You do it thousands of times a day on everything you own and you never once notice. Look at the tip of any finger, those little ridges curving and looping in a pattern that nothing else in the universe shares. You've had them since before you were born. And here is the strange part. For more than 100 years, everyone, scientists included, agreed on what they were for, and they were wrong. When someone finally put it to the test, the answer came back backwards. So what are those ridges actually doing there? Why do you have fingerprints? The answer changes everything you think you know about three things: how you grip the world, how you feel it, and what makes you, you. Start with the story you were told. Fingerprints are for grip. Like the tread on a tire, the ridges bite into a surface and hold on. It sounds obvious. It is in textbooks. And for over a century, nobody actually checked it. Then, at the University of Manchester, a researcher named Warman Ennos decided to test the obvious. The setup was almost comically simple. He pressed a volunteer's fingertip against a sheet of clear acrylic and measured the force it took to drag it across. Then again, with wider strips and narrower ones, over and over. If your fingerprints worked like tire tread, more ridge pressing into the surface should mean more friction. That is not what happened. Your fingertip, it turns out, does not behave like a hard solid at all. It behaves like rubber. And with rubber, friction depends on how much surface is actually touching. The ridges of your fingerprint don't add contact, they reduce it. Warman and Ennos published the result in 2009. Fingerprints cut the real contact area with a smooth surface by about a third. On a flat sheet of glass, they don't strengthen your grip, they slightly weaken it. 100 years of certainty, and the one thing everyone knew about fingerprints was simply wrong, but your fingers clearly do grip. So if it isn't the tread, what is it? In 2020, a team including Mike Adams at the University of Birmingham watched people's fingertips under laser light as they held a pane of glass, wet and dry. And they found something the tire tread story completely missed. The ridges are covered in sweat pores. When you touch a hard surface, they release a trace of moisture that softens the skin and grips better. Then, before your finger gets too damp and slippery, the pores throttle back. Your fingerprints are not tread at all. They are a self-regulating moisture system, tuning your grip in real time. The ridges weren't there to dig in, they were there to manage the film between you and the world, so that is grip. But it turns out grip was never the main event. The deeper answer was hiding one layer down in how you feel. Run a fingertip across a smooth table, then across paper, then across silk. You can tell them apart instantly in the dark without looking. But the differences between those textures are tiny, smaller than 1/10 of a millimeter. Your skin cannot see them. So how do you feel them at all? You feel them as vibration. As your finger slides over a surface, its microscopic texture makes your skin tremble, a faint buzz running through the flesh, and about 2 millimeters down, you have sensors built for exactly that. Pacinian corpuscles, tiny receptors that fire when they feel vibration, but they are fussy. They respond best to one narrow band of frequencies, around 250 times a second. Buzz them at the right rate and they scream. Off that rate, they go quiet. Here is where the ridges come back. In 2009, the same year as the grip study, a team of French physicists, led by Georges Debrégé, built an artificial fingertip. A cyber finger with synthetic ridges the same size and spacing as yours, wired to a sensor. Then they dragged it across textures and listened to what the ridges did to the vibrations. The ridges behaved like a tuning fork. They took the messy buzz of the surface and amplified one frequency above all the others. And that frequency landed right inside the range your Pacinian corpuscles are built to hear. Read that again. The spacing of the ridges on your fingertips is matched to the sensors underneath them. They are not grip tread. They are antennas, signal processors, filtering and boosting the touch information until it is loud enough and clean enough for your nerves to read. Every time you feel the difference between silk and cotton with your eyes shut, that is your fingerprints doing the job they were actually shaped for. Not to hold the world, to feel it. Which brings us to the strangest part of all, because those same ridges do one more thing, and it is the thing we have built an entire civilization of trust around. They make you findable. They make you provably you. Go back to before you were born. Around 6 weeks after you were conceived, small swellings called volar pads rose up on your forming fingertips. For a few weeks they grew. Then, somewhere near the 13th week, as those pads began to shrink back down, the skin above them started to buckle and fold under the strain, and the exact pattern it folded into depended on everything happening in that moment. The precise shape of the pad, the pressure of the fluid around you, how fast you were growing, even how your hand was curled. By around the 17th week, it was finished, set, and it would not change for the rest of your life. That is why no two people who have ever lived share a fingerprint, not even identical twins. Two people can carry the same DNA, the same face, and still leave different marks because the pattern was never written by your genes alone. It was written by the tiny, unrepeatable physics of a few weeks in the dark. Back in 1892, Francis Galton did the math on just how unique that makes you and estimated the odds of two prints matching by chance at about 1 in 64 billion. And to see how deep it runs, look at what happens when it's missing. There is an extraordinarily rare condition called adermatoglyphia. People born with it have smooth, blank fingertips, no ridges at all. In 2007, a Swiss woman was held for hours at the United States border. Her passport photo matched her face perfectly, but when they scanned her hands, the machines found nothing. A doctor gave the condition a nickname, immigration delay disease. In 2011, a team led by Eli Sprecher at Tel Aviv University traced it to a single mutation in one gene called SMARCAD1, one tiny error in the code, and a person enters the world unable to be recognized by the very mark the rest of us leave everywhere we go. Sit with that. We treat your fingerprint as the bedrock of who you are. It unlocks your phone. It clears you across borders. It can convict you or set you free. And it was never really about grip or even touch. It became the proof of your identity almost by accident, a leftover pattern from your first weeks alive that turned out to be more uniquely yours than your own name. We call it a fingerprint, and we treat it like a stamp, a thing you press down onto ink. But maybe you have had it backwards this whole time. What if it isn't a mark you make on the world, but a record the world made on you in the dark, before you had a name and never took back? For over 100 years, we thought we knew. We said it was for grip, and it wasn't, at least not the way we imagined. We looked closer and found an antenna tuned to the exact frequency of the nerves beneath it. We looked closer still and found the one thing about your body that is yours and yours alone, decided before your first breath. So press your finger to the glass again, then lift it away. You can barely see what you left behind, a faint smudge, a few curved lines, the one signature you never chose, that you can never lose, and that not one other person in the history of the world could have left in your place. And most of us go our entire lives touching everything, never once looking down at the answer sitting on the ends of our own hands.